Yeah, that was the video profile of Professor Liu. We can see that he has a very extensive experiences in science education, mobile learning, and I'm sure that all participants, we all can learn so much from him this morning as he will be presenting his paper entitled Bringing Science Simulation Games to Science Classroom, the Pedagogy and Orchestration Issues. Okay, this is a very, very interesting topic. As we all know, students love games, but bringing games into the classroom can be very complicated for teachers. So it's going to be an interesting session this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start the keynote session, I would like to remind you that we will have a question answer session at the end of the session. Please write your question on the Q&A menu, and then we will have the discussion afterward. Don't forget to write your name and your institution. Okay, without further ado, Professor Liu, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I would like to share my screen.
Yes.
Okay. It is. Thank you, Professor Malisari. Thank you. It's my great pleasure to be here to share our work in the development of simulations. And very importantly, I think it's quite hard to transform or change the education a little bit, even we have a great progress in technology. So what I want to present today is about our work to introduce the technology we developed into the schools. And so the issue here is that how could we bring technology into school classrooms, and the issue should be about pedagogy and orchestration, not only the technology part. So I think most of you, you have been using some simulations for science learning, and simulation. I think basically it is for to simulate a model or a system or a process that could visualize some invisible features of science phenomena. So that this kind of simulation could help students to experience scientific discovery processes. As you can see in the previous keynote section, there are so many domains that need computations. So I think simulation can help our students to experience this kind of modeling process, so that in the future they could become a very professional scientist. And this kind of, okay, so let me. So I think this kind of simulation could be used in education in context in many ways. For example, this could be used in modeling-based learning. That is quite similar to our previous keynote speaker has demonstrated. We are trying to use an appropriate representation to capture important features of a science phenomena. So students, they could use create or share evaluate model to explain some scientific phenomena. This is what we call modeling-based learning. And this is a very early example of modeling-based learning by Jeremy Rusher in 1992. The students, even without teaching by the teachers, they could build a concept of about acceleration with two simulations. They could discuss with peers and interact. While interacting with the simulation, they could, even without teaching, they could build their own model. Even that is not so sophisticated model, but they could gradually advance their understanding about this phenomena. And another application of simulation is that we could engage students to learn through solving a challenging task in the simulation. This is an example we have done in 2010. We engaged students to build some real model, real model, and they could write some program, and our program could simulate students' work, and so that student could learn some skill about programming and computational thinking in these ways. Another example is this done by University of Vanderbilt. That they have done lots of work about simulations in to have students to build something about physics or some life science. So this is about is a game that engages students in building a fish tank to learn something about ecosystem. So students could build their own fish tank, but they have to keep the ecosystem in a balanced way. So they could build a fish tank and they could learn something about ecosystem. This is also very interesting work that have done by Vanderbilt University. So there are many platforms that provide many wonderful, very beautiful simulations on the internet. For example, I think FET is a very wonderful and very famous one that is developed by University of Colorado at Boulder. They provide over 150 high quality simulation for physics, biology, chemistry, and earth science, and so on. But because all these simulations are built by fresh, fresh is fading out. So they are trying to transfer into HTML5 that could be run and executed in platforms like mobile phones and tablet PCs. So it's quite now it's still very wonderful platform. Another one is molecular workbench. If you are interested in science education, you could use some across the website too. All the simulation here provided in the molecular workbench are Java-based simulations. They provide many simulations for different disciplines like physics, chemistry, and biology. And they are also trying to, because all the simulations are built with Java program. So they are also, Java could not run in tablet PC or mobile phone. So they are also trying to transfer into this simulation to HTML5. And a very unique feature of the system is that they provide an activity development tools. Simply giving students the simulation, they could learn nothing. So they need teachers guidance. So with this platform, you can develop some learning activity with guiding questions to help students to discover the phenomena of displayed in the simulation to learn some science concept. So this is quite unique one. And another platform you could also use is the platform GoLab. So this is an EU exchange platform for simulations. The platform itself does not provide their own simulations, but they welcome all contributions from different countries. So if you could develop some simulation, you could upload your simulation onto the exchange platform. So example, we have developed over 30 simulation and we upload it onto the GoLab. So this become a exchange platform for simulations. They also provide an activity development tools for you to, if you are interested in a simulation, you could select the simulation and develop a learning activity for that simulations. It's also quite a fancy tools for teachers to use this kind of simulations. I think that all these platforms could help us to run or to use simulations in schools. Teachers or educators or researchers in education could use this kind of resources in schools. And another one's resources that this is not an online platform, but a simulation resource to develop simulations. That is EJS. Easy Java Simulation that is developed by Francisco Esquimbri from Spain. He's a mathematician, and he developed this tool to help scientists to develop simulations with when you use this platform, you do not have to write very complex code. Instead, you could also use only very simple mathematics and a very nice interface to develop a simulation. I will introduce to you later because we have some collaboration with him to develop new simulation platforms. And you know, EJS is a simulation development form, and Francisco is a mathematician. He's not a scientist, so we need a scientist to develop simulations. And Fukun Huang from Taiwan, he's the one who used the EJS to develop lots of maybe hundreds of simulations with the EJS, and all the simulations are available from in the virtual physics lab. And this website has been used worldwide, and it is very popular because this website is collected by many prestigious websites, organizations. And if you search virtual physics lab and Fukuoka, you could identify this website here. And there are still many users who use the simulation to teach physics or life science in science classroom today. But you know, all the simulation are developed with Java program. So it is also fading out. So we are working with Fukun Wang and Francisco together to transform all the simulations to HTML5 simulation too. So here is what we are trying to do. We're trying to develop a new simulation platforms. So we launched a new project in 2019 to start up this new platform under collaboration with Francisco and Fukun Wang. And you know, Francisco is a mathematician and Fukun is a scientist. And I'm from computer science department. So we work together with different roles. I'm in charge of the development of platform, and Francisco are in charge of the algorithm of the simulations, and Fukun Wang knows many domain knowledge about science. So we work together. I think it has been over 8 years work. And now we, in addition to the simulations, we add some new features to the new platform. The first one is collaboration. So most of the simulation you could find on the PhET or molecular workbench are individual-based simulation. In other words, student can use the simulation by their own. They could not collaborate with others on a single simulations. So what we did in a new platform is we develop lots of collaborative simulations. What do I mean? What I mean by collaborative simulation is that a couple of students could work on a single simulation. This is an example. If 2-3 students are playing a game and they are flying an aircraft to destroy the radar station here, and the 3 students have to work together, and one is in charge of the height of the aircraft, and another one is in charge of the velocity of the aircraft, and the third one have to decide the location to release the bomb in order to destroy the radar station. So the three students have to work closely together in order to achieve their goals. So they have to work together, and no one is left behind. They have to work very closely, and so everyone is needed. So this is what we call by collaboration. And another one is the pedagogical design. Our platform allows teachers to select a specific simulations, And then you could design a series of learning tasks for the simulation. So the teachers could provide some prompt questions in each task to guide students to go through very important uh, uh, inquiry processes. This is what we call pedagogical design. Our system also provide this kind of pedagogical design tools for teachers. And uh, another one, the new feature is learning analytics, because we log all students activity on our system. So we could do some learning analytics to understand students' learning patterns, their statistics of their activities, and maybe they work together in a group. So we could also do display the activity statistics by group or member contribution in a group. And very interestingly, this website also provides some pattern discovery algorithms. We could identify very frequent, very significant, very unique pattern, activity pattern that students demonstrate in when they are trying to figure out or trying to solve a physics problem. So this is what we have done. So after and maybe 10 years work, we have released the new platform Cosine, that is collaborative science. So if you have mobile phone, so you could scan the code and you could browse all the simulations on our platform, or you could type in the URL here. You will see there are over 100 simulations are available on our website. These maps are developed by our colleagues here in Taiwan, and all the simulations are free for you to use, or any teachers all around the world to use this in classrooms. So what we have here is the Cosine platform here. You could play simulation. If you are teachers, you could demonstrate some science phenomena in classroom, and students could also use the simulation to learn some science concept. And for teachers, you could design learning activities, and students could join the learning activity on the internet. And if you are a scientist, you could also develop your own simulations with very simple ways. And a very interesting feature is that we allow teachers to upload, to share their worksheet, paper worksheet onto our website to indicate how you use some simulations. So teachers could also browse some worksheets to know how others use this kind of some specific simulations here. And here is the interface for scientists to develop a simulation. We have a graphical interface for you to drag your interface, and then you could define some variables, and you could define the relationship between variables. So, and then they could enable your simulations. So this is what you need to do. I think only a very limited amount of programming is needed. Most of them are based on the mathematics function relationship between variables, so that you could write some simulations by yourself. And this is our simulation we have developed here. There are over 100 simulations here. This is our sum. Basically, we cover the topic that is needed in elementary school, in middle school, or in high schools in Taiwan. But I'm quite sure if you could find some simulation that could cover in the national curriculum in Indonesia. I think you could find some of them are very interesting and could be used in the schools. For example, the buoyancy is quite interesting one. Pressure, you could find it on our website. Velocity and acceleration, and frictions, and free falling and projectiling, circular motion, momentum and energy. This is for high schools. And collision, this is also for high schools. Harmonic motions, this is also for high school. Thermodynamics, this is for middle school or for elementary schools. Waves, optics, uh, electromagnetics. So if you could search on the internet, our website to find the simulation you are interested in. So today I will talk about more about the pedagogical design. I will not go into very detail about the collaboration or the learning analytics. I was talking about more about pedagogical design that teachers will be very interested in, because our goal is to bring the simulation or games into schools. So I think everybody will agree that simply providing simulations does not guarantee positive effect. This is because students do not know how to interact with simulations. Most of them just use mesh on a superficial and very playful ways. They do not know how to interact with the simulation to learn something deep. So students need some different level of support in using simulations. So and another issues here is because simulation involve the use of technologies that needs computers, and teachers need to leverage multiple resources. For example, the computers, the laptops, the iPad, the tablet PC, and text-based material and students. And they also have to take care of the constraints. For example, the time constraint, and the curriculum relevance, and some assessment constraints. So the work for teachers to use simulation is quite heavy, because they have to take care of lots of things in the classroom if they want to use technology in the classroom. So one of the criteria to successful application of this kind of technologies is simple and feasible. We have to make the pedagogy simple and feasible for teachers in schools. Not only just telling, oh, this technology is very fancy, I could use it, but without taking care of the cognitive load of the teachers. So one of the issue is the orchestration of multiple resources and the constraint to use this kind of these technologies. So what we're trying to do, what we want to do is to develop a couple of pedagogies that could be used in school by school teachers. We have demonstrated 5 and work with teachers in school and design a couple of the pedagogies that use simulations as a tool to enhance students' learning experience of physics. The first one is modeling-based learning with, the modeling-based learning with games. The second one is guided inquiry with simulations. The third one is critiques on inquiry with simulation. And the last one is lightweight inquiry in classrooms. I will introduce to you and some of the results of our experiment will be provided by because we have done lots of research in schools. So we compare students' performance when they use this kind of pedagogy, and those you learn in a traditional way. Sorry, I have to. So the first one is modeling-based learning with games here. So modeling-based learning, the students learn to build their own models without the teaching by the students, by the teachers. So this is what we have done for high school students. They have to learn the momentum and collision by themselves without the teaching of by the teacher, to learn what is the quantitative model of collisions. So this is a game for we trigger students to learn this phenomena. An object here will hit the pumpkin here, and they will stick together and fall down. They have to decide the mass of the two objects here, so the object here and the pumpkin, and the velocity of the object to hit the skull under the ground. So they have to understand what is collision and what is the collision, the quantitative model of the collision. They have to learn it by themselves. So it is very complicated phenomena. So we have to guide students to go through the inquiry step and to develop on their own models in order to solve the game, solve the problem here. So we designed this kind of this activity here with our platform. In the first stage, they could play the game to trigger students' curiosity and to give them some context to think about this problem. And then they go into the detailed simulation. We simplify the games into a very simple simulation to simulate the process of collisions. So they could observe the change of the velocity and the momentum in order to understand what is the phenomena behind this simulation. And then they could go into the model construction stage. So with the data they collected from the simulation, they could construct their own model, a quantitative model about collision. And then they will estimate how to solve, they will come up with some plan to solve the game we give to students. And then they would test their models with this game again. But to avoid the try and error, so the student will only give 3 times to try their models. They only have 3 times. They could not just do it again and again and do it in a try and error way. And then finally they have to write a report here. So here a very interesting part of this activities, students were not taught by the teachers. Instead, they construct their own models by themselves while interacting with our simulations and our games here. So we invited 25 students, high school students, to build their own models in 90 minutes section. So we collect their initial model and their final model after the model construction phase. And this is how students model the phenomena of collision. Before our experiment, most of students do not know how to model collision. I think, say, 17 students use vague or unrelated concept to describe collision. And after the model construction stage, there are 15 students who use velocity, could identify the velocity change after collision, or use momentum to model this phenomena. And then at the model testing phase, there are 15 students. They could successfully solve the problem we gave them. And in the delayed test, there are still 13 students who still could successfully model this kind of problem. So our work here, this is the first work here, demonstrate that even without the teaching by the teachers, still with when appropriate interacting with the simulation, they could construct their own. Half of them still can construct their own models, but still there are half of students still need more instructions. So, but it opened an opportunity for us to engage students in self-directive inquiry to build their own model. I think this is quite promising result here. And another track of our work is to develop the scientific inquiry and scientific literacies in classrooms. So what we have done is to engage students in some inquiry activity in the classroom in formal educational curriculum, not in other club or science club or some other of class of school class of school activities. So we introduce this kind of activity inquiry activities in school curriculum. So what we did is scientific literacy has been emphasized in science education uh, in many countries. So in a simple way, this is an ability to do science. For example, to explain science phenomena scientifically, or they could know how to design scientific inquiry, or they know how to interpret data, the data they collect scientifically. So, but engage student in some inquiry, in science inquiry in the lab is helpful to build their scientific literacy. But as you know, most of the lab teaching, the lab instruction is cookbook style laboratory instruction. That means students just follow teacher's instructions step by step. You do this first and then this and finally this, and you collect the data, and what do you find from the data? So basically this is a cookbook style laboratory. But the teacher has suggested this kind of instruction has unfavorable effect on science learning. So what we want to do is to engage students in, sorry, I have to, okay. Engage students in inquiry by themselves, but this is guided by the teachers. So what we did is to design a pedagogy for students. In the first class, the teachers demonstrate some virtual experiment using our simulations, and then students were asked to engage in this kind of the inquiry with the simulation by themselves. And then we did this is what we have designed for students. The students have to learn buoyancy and scientific literacy by their own. So the teacher just do a one-class demonstration of the virtual experiment, and students engage in this kind of inquiry by themselves. And this is the interface we give to students. Students could use the inquiry map system to configure their own inquiry path. And this path include they have to generate a hypothesis, and they have to design an experiment with our simulations. And they have to collect the data that our simulations generated, and they have to analyze the data, and finally to make conclusions. And the teachers could give some prompt hint in each of the tasks inside the task. And then they could complete their own inquiry by themselves. And we provide some of the hypotheses in the textbook, and students have to confirm whether the hypothesis is correct or not correct. They could have to verify this kind of hypothesis by themselves. And we did a comparative study. One class was taught by the teacher, and the other learned with the guided inquiry activity, and still were given 100 minutes lessons. We collect their science test, school science test score and scientific literacy test score. And this is the scientific literacy test we divide by our teams. We basically follow the OECD framework to understand student ability to explain phenomena, to design scientific inquiry, and their ability to interpret the data. We focus on the three parts. And this is the result here is quite interesting. For the school science teacher, that's the school science test scores, the two groups, the two class did not demonstrate significant difference. That their school test score are quite similar. And in the post-test score of scientific literacy, the two class also did not demonstrate significant difference. But in the delayed test about the scientific literacy, the treatment group demonstrated significantly higher score than the control group. So this is quite interesting one. That could explain by Houghton's learning curve. If our target of learning is the knowledge, after the training experience, their knowledge level will decrease. But if our target of learning is proficiency or literacy, their proficiency level will increase even after the training period. Our experiment confirmed that using the modeling-based approach with simulations, we will have better long-term learning effect on scientific literacies. Teaching with the traditional way will increase in this way, but learning with modeling-based approach with our simulation, their learning gain will increase like this way. So this is quite positive, a positive effect of this kind of simulations and pedagogies. And follow this track, we also trying to amend this kind of pedagogies. The main idea is with critiques. So because critiques in the literature have some very positive effect on learning, and so we included the critiques in our inquiry activity. So following this, we collect some pragmatic cases, inquiry cases here in that year, and we developed a critiques worksheet that students to discover what's going on with this kind of problematic cases. So students, instead of watching the teacher demonstration, in this group, students complete a critiques worksheet to critique some problematic inquiry cases. And then they still go into, they should do their scientific inquiry by themselves. So this is what we've done. So this is the critiques worksheet for students. This is a problematic inquiry cases. We ask students, is the claim reasonable? If not, how could you revise the claim? Or is the inquiry plan reasonable? If not, how could you change, modify the inquiry plan? So we, and then they, after the critiques, they participate in this kind of inquiry again. So we compare three treatments. One is traditional group, and the other is teacher demonstration group that is done in last pedagogy. And the third one is student critique group. They also participate in 100 meeting learning sections. So this is conventional no simulation teachings, just teach by textbook and some practice, teacher lead practice. So there's no simulation or inquiry. And the teacher demonstration is what we done in our previous studies. The teacher demonstrate a virtual experiment and followed by the student's inquiry. And the student critiques, instead of watching the teacher's demonstration, the students have to critique some fictitious experiments and then went to the inquiry by themselves. So what we found is the student critiques group demonstrate highest protest score in scientific literacies, and there are significant difference between student critiques group and the traditional group. And this is the effect size here. The critiques approach showed a medium effect size over the traditional approach. So this is quite promising result regarding the effect of the critiques approach. And so So reflection the three designed to improve the science learning effect. However, the three design assume the high readiness of technology used in schools because this kind of the pedagogies request one student to have one computers in classroom. So it's quite expensive and complicated for teachers to use. So we, based on our experiment, we invented a lightweight inquiry in classroom pedagogies. So this is quite simple one. Instead of giving students each one a iPad or a laptop or a computer, we apply the minimalism principle. So only 5 iPads are needed and 1 projector is needed. So a group of students, maybe 5, use a single iPad here, but their inquiry was led by the teacher's guidance with paper-based worksheet. So they could work together with their own worksheet together to answer some inquiry questions. And then they could, as a group, they have to come up with a group answer and to write their answer on the whiteboard. And the teacher could lead the whole class debriefing activities. This is how they do. So actually, students work on their own worksheet, here, but they could work together on a single iPad here because we do not have so many iPads for each individual students. So here is, and after the individual, the group discussion here, they could post their group work here, and then the teacher would lead the whole class discussion for the question they are exploring. So this is the result here for the scientific knowledge, the traditional group and the lightweight group, they do not demonstrate significant different post score here. There's no significant difference. But for the scientific literacy, the lightweighted groups demonstrate higher ability in interpret the data they collect in our experiment. So this is also quite promising one. So I would like to conclude my work here, our talk here, with the notion of practice-driven innovation research here. In the first 15 years of my career, most of my work is about dream-based research. That is to tell teachers a dream about very fancy technologies, or to say, oh, this is quite fancy and this technology maybe have very good potential to do something, but without telling them the practically help them to transform teaching or learning. But what I mean by practice-driven innovation research is that research that create innovation that practically transform teaching and learning in the context, that is in the schools, that could be used in the school. The technology may be not so fancy, but it could practically work in schools. So this kind of work have to work with school teachers, and that have to address teachers' orchestration requirement. It could not be very complex. It must be simple and feasible, and it could demonstrate practical impact on students. So it have to consider very complex constraint of school educations. So what we have done here is we developed a cosine platform. We provide 100 simulations, and with this platform, the teachers could develop their own learning activities. And so this is done by under collaboration with 8 schools in Taiwan. So we hope to bring this simulation to schools. And here I demonstrate is that our full and simple and feasible pedagogical design were tested in school. Most of them are compared with the traditional approach. So, and most of the result is quite positive. They could guide students in modeling-based learning and also could develop students in scientific literacy. We hoped, or what we hoped is that the tool, the content, or the pedagogical method we create could practically improve the teaching and learning in school, not only tell school teachers, this is a dream, and maybe it will come true in 10 years later. So this is not so what we want to do right now. We want to practically transform school to education in the near future, maybe in next year or in this year. So this is what we have done. All the work here I have demonstrated here is through under cooperation with some countries like Spain, with Francisco, Green Brain, India, and Japan, Taiwan, and Thailand. So if you are interested in this kind of work to develop simulation or to use simulation in Indonesia or in other country, you are very welcome to contact me for further collaborations. Thank you. It's my talk. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Liu, for a very insightful presentations about innovation in education that really can create change and improvement in the classroom. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now it's time for discussion, question and answers. We have some questions here. I'm going to read them, Professor. And the first question, I think the first and the second can be combined into one. It's from Eleonora Agustin and from Paula Florendo. The question is about simulation in elementary school. The cosine project, does it have a simulation for elementary school? And is it only for science? Is there any simulation for mathematics related topics? And then the next question is from Saifuddin from Batan. The question is there any simulation program available on the COVID-19 movement? COVID-19 infection from one person to another that is easy to understand by its children. And then the next question is from Tesi Anggraini from Mathematics Department of UNJ. The question is, how do you choose the potential of simulation and games for learning? Okay, that was the first three questions. If we have time, I will read more questions. Okay. Professor, your mic is still mute.
Sorry.
Yes, okay. Yes, we can hear you clearly now.
Okay, so the first question is there any simulation for mathematics? Unfortunately not, because our collaborators are most from the physics department, and our postdoctoral researchers are physics experts, and most of the simulation are developed for physics, and the engine is RK4. I think if you know simulation engine, is a time sequence engine that could model the for a certain of time it will model the next time point, the value of the value of a certain variable according as equation. So it basically is a time sequence variable, time sequence modeling engines. But simulation, but mathematics is quite complicated. Our simulation could deal with some kind of phenomena, but could not deal each phenomenon. So if your problem could be modeled in a time sequence with some equations, then our simulation could provide this kind of modeling. But if that is some kind of what we call it constraint based, or aging-based that is quite common in biology. For example, how some specific species propagate or change, or the pollution of the air, that is something that would evolve according some constraint based system. Our system could not do that. Our system is to deal with the time sequence. So you will see there are most of the application simulation in on our platform is about the time sequence. But for math education, I think you could identify a couple of simulations that are quite popular on the website, on the internet. You could see that geography, I think I can remember.
GeoGebra.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of good tools to this kind of thing. But the problem is I don't know whether there is some platforms that you could use to share your simulation with others, or your experience in using this kind of simulations. So I'm not quite sure there is this kind of platform, but I encourage you to discover the website, the Go Lab, to see if there are some simulations in mathematics. I think there are probably some simulation in this topic. And the second question is COVID-19. Yes, we have one. we have developed one simulation to discover how COVID-19 propagates among peoples. If you are interested in this topic, then you could search on our Cosine website. You will probably could identify one to see the propagation rate, and to control. If we could control at the initial stage of the disease or pandemic, we could control it very well, then the propagation could be controlled. But if it exceeds a critical point, it will be burst in a dramatic way. So I think in the initial stage is quite important for the government, for everyone to control from the beginning, the initial stage. So if are interested on this topic, you could search on our website. And the one I forget the third one.
Okay. Then the third question was, how do you choose a good simulation for the games and for the learning, for the simulation and the games for the learning?
So you mean how
Maybe.
do we choose, right?
Yeah, I mean, what kind of criteria of good simulation?
Oh, okay. This is very good question, because
Yeah.
As a researchers, we do not know what teachers may need and what difficulties they encounter in their teaching. So we have to work with teachers. So this is the first criteria, is that the simulation is needed by the teachers. And then so basically we went through all the textbook, the national textbook in Taiwan, and pick all the simulations, all the phenomena, science phenomena that could be displayed. They could be displayed by our simulations. So we pick all the possible topics, and then we have some teacher collaborator. We ask them what is most challenging teaching topic for you. Then we could discuss with them. For example, I think friction and is the very difficult one, and buoyancy is also very complex for students to understand. So our very first attention is to develop buoyancy and frictions for students. So this is what we want to do. And then the next criteria is that if if the technologies could really positively impact the learning process, or it is only a replacement of teachers instruction, is the simulation could engage students in student-centered construction of knowledge. We do not only want this simulation could be only a demonstration or something. Students have to have the opportunity to involve in the manipulation of the simulation in order to clarify some questions. So this is what we mean by this kind of the criteria. The first one is asking the teachers and tackle and pick the most challenging one. Otherwise, if very simple, students do not need this kind of simulations. They could learn very well with the teachers. They do not need this kind of simulation this kind of technologies. This is what I understand.
So it's an active engagement from teachers and students, right? Okay, I think we have time for one more question. Next question is from Bapak Sarjito. The question is there any possibility to combine more than one simulation into one simulation? For example, simulation of freefall motion or projectile motion simulation with air friction simulation or buoyancy of air simulations?
Yeah, this is a quite good question too. You can see in the first example, modeling-based learning, we include 2 simulations in one activity. So basically, you could include multiple simulations in one activity. You could ask them to do something in a single simulation, and then ask them to do something else in other simulations. So your activity could become a series of activities that involve different parts of the topics or some important features of the phenomena. So you could choose, or you could even modify the simulations in different labels. One simulation with different, maybe at the first one is very initial, very simple one, and gradually you could modify your simulation into to include more features, and gradually guide them to sophisticated model of some of the phenomena. So you could do that. So our system could provide you this kind of features to do that. So basically it's possible, and you could also change the simulations itself to become a multiple versions. For example, the buoyancy simulation. It could simplify the simulation by deleting some features, just displaying very simple one, and gradually come to the very sophisticated model of the simulation. So it is possible to do that, and it's quite simple to do that. In our platform. So any question?
Okay, sorry. Yes, so the platform allows teachers to design lessons that can, increase the level of difficulties. So it's very convenient, I think, for the teacher. And you also said it's free?
Yeah, it's free. It's all free.
So Indonesian teachers can go there and use the simulation.
The project is supported by our government. The Ministry of Science and Technology. So it is open for all users all around the world. And there's one country that you know which country use our system most frequently. Paris.
Wow.
Paris, because we upload our slash onto Go Lab, so there are so many users from Paris visit our website. So it is free for use of teachers and students all around the world.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you're welcome to use it.
Well, thank you, Professor Liu. And hopefully after this, Indonesian teacher will go to Kosai and try the simulation there. Professor, can you, do you have time for one more question? Yeah. Okay. The question is from Eka Mediana Wahyuningrum from Mathematics Department. The question is, in the game-based learning method, students can play and learn at the same time. But there are students who freely or do not follow the learning sequence. What must be in the game so that students can follow the lesson well, and how can we measure their interest, something like that. I mean, you mentioned earlier about the superficial and playful aspect of the simulation. Maybe it's related to the questions.
Yeah, this is also a very good question. How do we understand how students are doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, we have a set of tools for teachers to observe what are students doing. So we have what we call it learning analytics tools for teachers. Basically, it could display all the actions students have performed on our platform. So it's quite easy for teachers to monitor all students' actions. And after that, for example, for a two hour section, our tool could help teachers or researchers to uncover the activity patterns that students have demonstrated. That we called it a lag sequential analysis. This is kind of a machine learning tools we have built in our website. So after the class, after the each activity section, teachers could do this kind of analysis to understand what are students doing. And actually, our paper have demonstrated this kind of research. If you are interested in this paper, I could say, if you are interested, could you give me the slide?
Yeah.
So here is the paper we did. We did a learning analytics to analyze, understand what students are doing. Are they doing very well, or they are doing a very superficial way? So there are some ways to discover this kind of things. I think this is quite a good question, and this is a research topic. So if you are interested in this, you could download the paper, and you could understand what we have done to this issue. Thank you for this question.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor Liu. To close this session, maybe I can just give a short conclusion of these very insightful morning sessions. So when we're using simulation in our learning, our teaching, it's important to involve the teachers and the students in the learning, so they are very engaged in the learning. And also the platform that Professor Liu has shown, this COSI, provided the learning analytics, so it helps teachers to monitor the students' learning. Okay, thank you very much, Professor Liu, for the very... Thank you.
Sorry, yeah.
Meliasari. Yeah. Thank you very much, Professor Liu. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of the second keynote speaker session of SMIC 2020. Unfortunately, we cannot show you a big applause, but I will give you a big applause, Professor Liu.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Dear participant, I have some announcement. After this session, don't forget to fill out the attendance list. It will be shown in the chat box. Please keep in mind that we only open the attendance list for 5 minutes, so you only have 5 minutes to fill it out. And then after this, we're going to show you a video presentation from our students, Universitas Negeri Jakarta. And then we will have a poster presentation session afterwards. And then after that, we will proceed to the parallel session. The Zoom link of the parallel session will be open at 12:30 Jakarta time. The parallel session will start at 1 p.m. Jakarta time. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this session and have an insightful conference for the rest of the day. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Video kita ya.
I will always remember the day you kissed my cheeks like it's a feather. And it went just like this, no it's never been better than summer of 2002. We were only 11, but acting like grown-ups, like we are in the present. Drinking from plastic cups, singing love is forever and never. Well, I guess that was true. Dancing on the hood in the middle of the woods on an old Mustang, where we sang songs with all our childhood friends. And it went like this, say oops, I got 99 problems, singing bye bye bye. Hold up, if you wanna go and take a ride with me, better hit me baby one more time. Paint a picture of you and me on the days when we were young, singing at the top of both our lungs. Now we're under the covers. Fast forward to 18, we are more than lovers. Yeah, we are all we need when we're holding each other. I'm taken back to 2002. Ooh. Dancing on the hood in the middle of the woods on an old Mustang, where we sing songs with all our childhood friends. And it went like this, say oops, I got 99 problems, sing bye bye bye. Hold up, if you wanna go and take a ride with me, better hit me baby one more time. Paint a picture for you and me on the days when we were young, singing at the top of both our lungs on the day we fell in love. Ooh, ooh, ooh. On the day we fell in love. Ooh, ooh. Dancing on the hood in the middle of the woods on an old Mustang, where we sing songs with all our childhood friends. Oh now, oops, I got 99 problems singing bye